Athletic Brewing Company is reimagining beer for the modern active adult. Their great tasting athletic craft brews let you enjoy the refreshing taste of craft beer without the alcohol or the hangover. You can enjoy them anytime, anywhere, and still be healthy, active, and at your best. And when AB won North American Brewer of the Year at the International Beer Challenge, the judges were shocked to find out it was alcohol-free. I mean, seriously? Buzz-free beer that is better than the rest? And to top it all off, as part of Athletic Brewing, 2 for the Trails program, 2% of all their sales are donated to causes and organizations that support healthy, outdoor, active living through park and trail cleanup and maintenance. Whether you've decided to cut alcohol out of your life for good, for a night, or just one drink, Athletic Brewing Company provides an option without compromises that you're guaranteed to enjoy. To try their award-winning non-alcoholic beers, go to athleticbrewing.com. Use the code PNF20. You'll save 20% off your first order. There is free shipping on orders of 2 6-packs or more, or you can use their store finder to find it on shelves near you. Athletic Brewing. Brew without compromise.
You're listening to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast with your hosts Ryan Milford and Sean Lavery.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bass Fishing for Noobs podcast, part of the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm your host, Sean Lavery. With me, as always, is my co-host, Ryan Milford. What's up, Ryan?
What's going on, man?
And welcome back again, Mr. Daniel Perry, the Alabama Slammer himself, host of The Reel Down, also another Paddle and Fin segment.
Hey.
Welcome back to the Noob Show, sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm a 3-time loser now.
Man, you're rivaling Jody Queen for most times on here.
Oh, well, he should definitely be on more times than me.
Well, your episodes tend to be like popular episodes, though, because
obviously.
well, you have like a real detail for attention, or what did I just say? You have a lot of attention to detail. Look, work has been killing me, okay? I'm sorry. But no, you pay now I just you pay
pays close attention to detail. Right.
Yeah. And so like I don't know, you get like deep into that stuff, and I think people like to really hear that. It's interesting hearing you talk about stuff. So
cool. Well, yeah, man. Really, it's my feeling. Like I'm happy to come on here. I was in the same position where these techniques were new, so I'm happy to give away the juice, man. The chances are of you fishing against me in my same spot, taking my money, they're slim. So I'm happy to give away the juice, man. I hope these techniques help somebody. And really, these 2 techniques we're going to talk about tonight, they will absolutely help you catch fish. If you're just starting out and trying to get into catching some fish and you want to catch quantities of fish and sometimes bigs, like my biggest one of the year last year was caught on one of these, you are listening to the right show tonight.
Awesome.
And I wanted to add something, you people taking your money. Now, if you're fishing on Seminole, then I think they got a pretty good chance of taking your money.
Shut your mouth. I do not want to hear the name of that lake ever in my life. Look, 2 Hobies in a row, I've been to Seminole, and I got whooped both times. I'm not going back. They can keep it. Hobie goes back to Seminole. Dan is not going.
Well, I don't think you're the only one, though. Yeah.
Look, I've said this. We were on them in practice, and you can only practice, blah, 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 sad story. People don't want to hear it. We were on it. We were catching 4s and 5s in practice. Weather changed, and you can only practice so many places so much. The rain just changed it, and we didn't have enough time to do whatever, to adjust enough to go to a totally different place. A lot of people were catching them way up the river, and we had a river backup spot too. and that didn't pan out. Where we were punching and catching fours, and that didn't happen for us. So it is what it is, you know. If that tournament would have been on Wednesday and Thursday, boom, Dan gets paid. But it didn't happen, so it is what it is. Hey,
I wouldn't write it off in that case then, because you know
it's fishing. You're going to get your feelings hurt sometime. That's all right. Yep,
you're. That definitely happens more often than not to me.
And excess make money too. It's all right.
I definitely am good at donating my money, so.
Yeah, I believe I'll be doing that in April at Dale Hollow.
I don't know. You got some experience there now, so you never know.
Yeah, I caught several like 10 to 11 3/4 inch fish.
Well, you know what not to do.
Hey, I did catch a good size, like, I don't know what you want to call it, sunfish. You know, I call them all bluegill. Like all the panfish, I call them all bluegill, but people are like, "Oh, that's not a bluegill." Like, I know it's not a bluegill, but that's
shell cracker, rock,
pumpkin seed, all
this. That thing, I could barely grip it in my hand. So that thing was huge.
Hey, fish is a fish. Yeah. Well, tonight we brought on Dan to go over some finesse techniques, specifically the Nico Rig and the Ned Rig. Yep. Two things. A wacky rig has always been one of my go-to rigs, and I actually sat down with Dan when the last time we were at Dale Hollow at the marina, sitting across the table from him, and he was talking up how great he thought that the Nico rig was, and I figured, it seems like a close relative of the wacky rig, so I figure it might be a good technique for me to try. So it's been the technique I'm going to focus on the most this year, I think. Among the other ones, but primarily I'm going to start throwing it and see what I can do with it. So we're going to talk about the Ned Rig or the Nico Rig tonight, and also the Ned Rig. Definitely something I've thrown before, but don't have a ton of luck with. But definitely looking forward to getting some juice on that.
And another thing with the Ned Rig, we've talked to several people that have talked about the Ned Rig, but everybody seems to have their own little different things they do with it. So it's interesting to see how different ways you can work it, people using different weights, different, all that stuff, and try to put that together to see what works best for you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing, is where it fits into your lineup. It's about the other techniques you throw and how the Ned and the Nico, how they fit along with that. Like if you're throwing a shaky head along with a Ned, then you're going to throw a super light Ned. If you're not throwing a shaky head too, then maybe you'll throw a little bit heavier Ned to make up. So a heavier Ned because you're not throwing a shaky head. So it depends on where in the lineup of all the techniques that you're throwing and how they fit. So yeah, there can be some differences too, for sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so as far as the Nico Rig, for somebody that has no idea what a Nico Rig is, you want to start out just explaining what it is?
Okay, so yeah. So it's kind of like let's say it's a worm. So just think a regular stick bait, a regular worm, and you can use any kind of worm, whether it's like a regular Senko or a trick worm. It can be any worm that you like. And I'll start out by saying that I am sponsored by X-Zone Lures, so I don't want anybody to think. For the Nico Rig, I still stay with Z-Man, and I'm going to come on here and tell you the truth. With all my other soft plastics, I have swapped over to X-Zone, like even my Neds. I think they're a superior product, but I haven't with my Nico, and I'll tell you why. And maybe one day I will, but I haven't yet. So, I want to put that out front. So, everything I tell you is, it's going to be the truth. I'm not a paid sponsor. They're not a paid sponsor. I just get discounted product. Now, maybe if they paid me, hey, when you want to send me that money, maybe I'll do Nico too. Just saying.
But nod, wink, wink.
We're on a podcast.
Dan Perry can be bought.
I would still throw it. Like even a pro, you know, like a real pro, they're not going to throw every single bait by a certain brand, but you know, I want to give that disclaimer.
And
But
if you believe that they're a truly superior product, then yeah, there's no reason not to, right?
Yeah, and I 100% believe that too, and I'll tell you why. You know, whenever I'm going over it. But the so any kind of bait, you put a weight in one end of it, usually the fat end. So like if you're used to a shaky head, the end that goes down, and the tail end that would be up, you're putting the weight on the bottom end, any kind of weight you want, and then you're putting a hook somewhere like the egg sac would be, that little spot, that little weird blank spot in the worm that's usually about a third of the way up. That's called an egg sac. So if you didn't know what that was, that's the egg sac. Like you'll have ribs all the way down the worm, and then you got that one little weird spot a third of the way up. That's the egg sac. That's usually where you put the hook. So you got the weight in the very end of it. You got that hook right there, and whenever you throw it out, it's going to go weight down. The tail's going to stick up, and then you got your hook, and you just kind of pop it up. And every time you pop it, the weight's going to go down, the tail's going to stick up, and then you just kind of pop it along the bottom, and it's just kind of popping, 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 and every time the weight's going down and the tail's going up. So you're just going along the bottom. You can drag it real slow, but to me, kind of that popping deal, just small little pops. Sometimes they're big, like stroking it off the bottom. And this can be an offshore technique too. And I'll get into that of when that's good. So if you're going ledge fishing, that's kind of undiscovered. Like a lot of people don't talk about that, or a lot of people haven't done it. But I promise, you take a Nico rig and you go heavyweight and you go offshore, that can be the deal too. But you throw, you know, that stroking deal, like a football jig. A lot of people do that. They take a big 3/4 1 ounce football jig, and you just as heavy as you can, kind of like a big spoon, and you jump it off the bottom. Same thing with a football jig, or same thing with a Nico rig. You jump it off the bottom, and it's a reaction bite. The fish that are sitting right there on the bottom or real close to it, they see it come by their face real fast, and they bite it. And that's the same thing that you can do with a Nico. And sometimes it's that it just slowly coming down. So it could be two things. It could be the worm jumping off the bottom of a reaction bite, or it can be it slowly shimmying down that they want. So it could be the reaction bite, or it could be the feeding bite of it coming down. There you go.
Okay.
As far as rigging it, like there's a specific way to put the hook, right? Because I know like Nico and Wacko are different, correct?
So the hook that I use is the VMC Ike approved weedless Nico hook, and I use that 100% of the time. And I use I don't remember what size hook I use. I think it's the 1, and they have the 2, a 1, a 1/0, and a 2/0. I think it's the 1. So it's like a good size. You can get whatever size you want, but it's like a good size hook. Or you can use a wacky hook too, but it's got like two monofilament weedless steels. It doesn't get hung up, so you can still skip it. You can throw it anywhere you want to. So and that's a good thing. That's why I still use the Z-Man. You don't have to use an O-ring. That's the trick to the Z-Man and the Nico rig, is not having to use that O-ring. It's one less step. You just hook it right in that egg sac, and you know, I use the bang sticks. So if I'm just regular Nico rigging, 90% of the time I'm using a bang stick. It's 5.75 inches, so it's good almost 6-inch worm. It works great. You put that hook right through the egg sac. You don't have to use an O-ring, and you just throw it out, and it works great. Don't have to use an O-ring. The only time I use a different worm, and I know some people use a finesse worm, and that works great too. Some people like the other Z-Man worms. Those are good. The regular finesse worm, that's great. If you want to use that, use it. I just personally like the the bang stick. It's got the little tickler in. I like that. The Z-Man ticklers, I think that's the same end that they use on the bang stick. But I like the if I'm fishing offshore, I like the mag fatties. It's like a bigger, fatter worm. It's like a Magnum version of that, except it doesn't have the same end. So it's like a bigger, fatter worm, and that's it. And I use a heavier weight. And the weights that I use, I'll go ahead and explain them. So, and you can go back and rewind this if you want to. Every time I get on here, I'm giving a whole lot of information, but I use a 1/20th. So they have 4 different weights. They have a 1/20th, a 1/15th, a 1/10th, and a 1/6. I use a 1/20th if I'm shallow. So think of it same thing as a wacky rig. The only time I'm using that 1/6, like shallow cover, just like a wacky rig. And it's so light that you can use it exactly like a wacky rig. So Sean, you're saying, why throw a wacky rig? If you're thinking, when would I throw a Nico rig over a wacky rig? Quit throwing a wacky rig. You don't need it. You don't need it anymore. Stop throwing it. I have just eliminated your wacky rig, and I have now given you a more versatile bait that you can throw a little bit deeper, but it's still going to do all the same things. And then you can take that weight out one time. You can do it one time in the Z-Man. You can take that weight out and put in a heavier weight and go fish deeper without killing that worm. So it's the Z-Man Ned Shrooms Wacky Rig Nose Weight. They come in 2 colors. I just buy the green pumpkin. You get 4 of them for $5. They got a black and a green pumpkin. I get the green pumpkin. I don't care. No matter what colors I throw, I just get the green pumpkin. Or if you want black, get the black. Whatever floats your boat, get it. So the 1/20th I use shallow. That's so light you can still skip. It skips like a rock, just like a wacky rig. No problems. The 1/15th, I move up to that whenever I'm just a little bit deeper. You're thinking like mid-range, maybe like 8 feet, up to like 10, 11 feet. That's going to be the one that you want. So not that super shallow cover, skipping kind of stuff, just that little bit deeper, maybe just like off, just a hair deeper, up to kind of that 10-foot range. And then whenever you want to fish the deeper stuff, you're going 12 feet. You're going with the 1/10, the deep stuff. And then the 1/6, the only time I use the 1/6 is whenever I'm doing the mag fatty, the big worm, and I'm going offshore. That's the only time I step up to that one. So I carry that one, but that's only in the summer. And they're little bitty weights. They go into it's going to take you a little bit to figure out how to use these weights. And if you've used any Z-Man, you probably already figured it out. I mean, you shove that weight all the way into that dude as far as it can go, and then you kind of pull it back over. You pull the worm back over the weight, kind of like, you'll figure it out over time. You pull the worm back over. You pull the meat of the worm back over the weight. It'll take you a little bit to figure it out, but you pull the rubber over the weight. It'll take a few times. You'll figure it out. A couple of times you'll probably slang the weight off.
I have done that.
Yeah, you'll lose a couple weights, but they're not that expensive. And then once you figure it out, just get that weight way down in there. It'll stick out a little bit, but I promise, once you figure it out, they stick in there good. No problems. So that's all the weight. Yep.
Now, I've got some nail weights from actually my sponsor, Wicked Weights. So I can just use those for Nico Rig, right? To keep from having to buy extra product.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you can't. As long as they work with the Z-Man products,
Sure it will. Just a little force, shove it in there.
Sometimes it's a little tough. I've used nail weights on Z-Mans before, and it is a little tough, but it does work.
Could you? Yeah, I mean, or if nothing else, you could super glue something onto their weights to make it kind of stick in there. Like you could DIY something because I think with the Wicked Weights, it's more of just like the normal kind of screw type that would go into any worm.
Like a nail weight type.
Yeah, like a regular, more of a
It's
nail.
like the ribbed cone or whatever.
Yeah. Now the good thing about Z-Man is they kind of have like pointy things that come off to the side that really stick in the Z-Man, and that's what makes their weights perfect for their baits. So, you know, I would say the ones they make the weights perfect for their worms. So in this situation, I would say buy theirs. And like I'm sponsored by X Zone, and X Zone is great, and X Zone makes terminal tackle. But for this technique and this specific deal, it's like peas and carrots, man. You know, like they have figured it out, and this is the deal. Now, if you want to DIY it and super glue something on there, hey man, do it.
Now I know Ryan asked about the hook. When I wacky rig a Senko or a worm, I go perpendicular to the worm. But I think with a Nico rig, ideally you're going parallel with the worm, right?
Now, see, in this technique, because of the Z-Man, because you don't have to use the O-ring, you can just regularly go right with it. Just straight through the egg sac, and like just perpendicular.
Oh, you are doing perpendicular.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, like, if the worm is right,
it's like a cross.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, and I know that seems maybe counterintuitive, like you wouldn't get a good hookup ratio, but I promise, the hookup ratio is like, that's another good thing about this is like it's almost perfectly. It's as weedless as something can be. It's the hookup ratio is like unbelievable, like as good as it could possibly be. And there's nothing bad about this technique. There's nothing bad. It catches the mess out of them. It catches a bunch of them. I caught my biggest fish of last year at 23 and a half. 8.3, my biggest fish of last year. I won a tournament whenever I was fishing it that day. I caught a mess of fish on it. I mean, it skips. You can use a bunch of different weights, so it's super versatile. If you're fishing a different weight, you just slap. If you kill a worm, Z-Man's super, durable. So it's not very expensive. It's the perfect technique. Like if I were a noob and I was, hey, I'm brand new, I'm green, I'm figuring out fishing. If I had to figure out one technique, I swear this would be the technique I would figure out first. I mean that, like hand to Bible. The Nico Rig is the number one thing I'd figure out, because you can do so many different things with it. It can be just like a Senko, like a weedless Senko, a wacky rig. You can use it like a shaky head because you can drag it on the bottom like a shaky head. You can fish it offshore like a big giant shaky head. You can just do a lot of different things with it. It's so versatile. You can do a lot of different things with one rod. It really is an amazing technique, and it will straight up catch them.
And speaking of rod, I'm guessing you probably throw it on a spinning rod, right?
Yep. So here, I'll give you my rundown. So I use an Arc Invoker Pro. It's like I don't use super high expensive stuff. That's just me. I'm mean on my gear, so I don't buy the highest, most expensive stuff. It's $150 rod, and that's nice. I'm not saying I use cheap stuff, but I use like medium range stuff. Arc Invoker Pro 7.1 medium extra fast. Medium is the deal. So that's 7 to 7.2, depending on what you like. Let's say 6.10. If you have a 6.10 to 7.2, that's going to be the range. 7 foot is probably 7.71. I would say is perfect. Medium is the deal. You don't want a medium heavy, and you don't want a medium light. Those are not it. You want a medium.
Okay.
Fast, extra fast, those are both cool. So right around a 7 has to be a medium. I use a Quantum Smoke. It's 2500 size S3 spinning reel. It's a 6.0-1. So a 6-speed reel. If you're buying a spinning reel, buy a 6-speed or higher. There's such good spinning reels now. Don't buy a 5-speed spinning reel. that, like, you can get a President, you can get a bunch of them. I'm sure you've talked about them on here before. Just get a 6-speed spinning reel. There's such good ones out there. Like, you want one fast enough. That's like the big thing now. Just get a fast spinning reel, 2500 size or 3000. That's fine. Mainline, I use Sunline SX1 high vis yellow braid. I use 12 pound. I use that for all my spinning reels. It lasts years. I have literally used that braid for years on spinning reels. So like, it's not real expensive braid. I mean, not real cheap braid, but I've had it on spinning reels for 2 and 3 years. So yeah, it might cost $22, $25 for a spool, but stays on there for 3 years. I use a high vis yellow because let's be honest, if you're watching this, I got some gray in my beard. Like, I can't see as well as what I used to. So, you know, having that yellow, like, I can see my line tick. I think even if you're young on like a, you know, those days, like, that line is so small. If you want to use something a little bit bigger, I use 12 because I'm going to use a light. I've never had a problem. I use the lightest line I can, and I've never had a break off problem. So I use 12 on all my spinning reels, the same exact line. 12 pound high vis Sunline SX1. I use the same stuff on all of them. I use the Alberto knot, and I'll tell you why I use the Alberto knot, because I know there's a lot of knots out there. Double uni, this, that, the double tango, I don't know, whatever fancy knot out there. I've never had one break, and I've been using it for 9 years. That's why. Alberto knot is super easy, and I've never had one break. There you go. I hear everybody talk about, oh, the Alberto knot. That's a good beginner knot. I fish hardcore. Never had one break. There you go. It's small enough.
I had them break on me a couple times when I first started doing it, but I figured out that I believe it was more of a me issue the way I was doing it. I had like a very like a braid with a lot of coating on it, so you know, it's kind of slick, and I ended up doing a few more wraps on it each way, and I haven't had an issue anymore.
I use good line. So, and maybe that's part of it too, is I always use good line. Like I use braid to fluoro, but because I use leader, I only buy one spool, so it lasts for a long time, you know, because that braid, it lasts for so long. I don't have a problem. So I'm not using it. I'm not using very much.
This past year, I've swapped to where I've been swapping to better line, but but before I was going cheap, spider wire. You know.
And then my leader, I use Seaguar and Bizex. That's what I use, Seaguar and Bizex for everything. Again, I've been using that for, I don't know, since 2012. I just don't have a problem. I'm so confident in it. And I use 8 pound line. And this, if you're comfortable, you can go up to 10. But again, I just don't. I am utmost confident in 8 pound Seaguar fluorocarbon and Bizex. I just don't break off, so I don't have a problem. Even with the big offshore stuff, I still use 8 pound line. I'm just confident. I don't have a problem with it. I use San Diego Jam knot. Some people use double San Diego Jam. San Diego Jam. If you're looking for a knot, that's a great one to use. That's what I use. Alberto, and those two knots to me, I know people don't talk about knots very often, but those to me are like the easiest. So it's got to be easy out on the water too. There's fancier ones that may be a little bit smaller, but those to me are easy, and that's a big part of being a kayak is quick, easy, and you can repeat it all the time. So that doesn't get talked about very often. I wanted to make sure I said that.
No.
There you go. That's my setup. I use the same thing every time, and the colors I use are black and blue in dirty water. They have a black blue laminate. I wish it didn't have purple on it, but it does, so I use it. I use the deal in clear water. It's just like a fish looking deal. I don't know what it looks like.
It's the deal.
Yeah, the deal. There you go. And I use green pumpkin blue in the summer whenever I'm around like brim beds. In the summer, brim, they, they spawn. They have like little brim beds. So whenever I see them on side scan, I'll keep that green pumpkin blue with me and I fish that. So that's my 3 colors. That's it. Keep it simple. There you
go. Oh, what was I going to ask? I just totally lost my train of thought. I was going to ask something.
You're not allowed to do that whenever I do that.
All
right. So, what kind of areas are you targeting with this? Like, where you, like structure, or I know you talk about you can do it in several different depths, but
yeah, I mean, really, it's one of those deals where you can fish pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's not really going to be so much around grass, so I'm not going to fish around. It's usually going to be around some kind of structure. So like docks would be great. Anything vertical, so like a bluff wall, any kind of bridge, any kind of rocks, any kind of think of anywhere you would throw a jig, a shaky head, just any kind of structure. Not so much for grass, even though that weedless, you can get it around some grassy stuff. So around like the outside of weed lines, that can be great. Like just kind of letting it, you get that real lightweight, the lightest weight, the 15th or the 20th, and you throw it on outside parallel weed lines, kind of like a weedless, like a wacky rig, and you just let it float down that. That can be the deal. Because sometimes that just the weightlessness, like a Senko, can be the deal, and they just on a finicky day, that can be something. Yeah, so just usually structure or vertical. It's more of a vertical presentation, or a skipping under docks, getting under things can be a big one, or offshore if you're using the big one. But not necessarily grass. Grass would be the one, like thick grass. You're not going for that.
Just because maybe because your hook is sideways or perpendicular. I think maybe if it wasn't if you did put it parallel, maybe it would be a little more.
Well, I mean, the hook would be up where, I mean, if you were on top of the grass, it wouldn't have a problem being on it. Really getting caught on the grass. It just, I mean, an 8-pound line in grass, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage with a fish.
No, it makes sense.
Being around grass. So it just wouldn't be the ideal bait, I guess.
Right. But if you stick to the edge, the grass, like the grass lines, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping you can get them away from it quick.
Right. Yeah. Which is where that little bit higher speed reel might come in handy. So,
yeah. Yep.
Cool.
I just had to look close. I saw your yak gadget up there on your banner.
Yeah.
And, at first, from a distance, I thought it said Lieutenant. I'm like, it's Lieutenant Dan.
No, I was a sergeant. They didn't make me an officer.
Sergeant Dan still sounds okay. I'd still take quarters from you.
Yeah. Well.
All right, cool, man. All right. Well, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to, we talked a little bit about like technique earlier. You're talking about popping it and stuff. Was there anything with that where we can go a little more in depth with technique, or did that pretty much cover it?
Yeah, I think, like anything else, you're just kind of feeling out the fish that day. So like a slow drag, but usually like a light pop, like just kind of, like it doesn't have to be like a violent pop, but you're just kind of lifting it off the bottom. I would say half the time is like a lift, like a slow lift off the bottom. Like you're not popping it hard off the bottom. You're just like lifting the rod off the bottom a couple of feet, 2 or 3 feet off the bottom, and then letting it come back down and watching kind of watching the slack as you're bringing it down, because sometimes they'll hit it. So a controlled slack as it come back down, lifting it 2 or 3 feet. So you're just always, what you're wanting to do You don't want it laying on the ground, because then you're losing, that worm's not up in the air. So you want the tail to be up in the air. That's the whole power of the technique. So you lift up the rod and you get that worm to come back down, and you keep your controlled slack. So if you do that quick, if it's a real high bluebird day, no wind, and you're thinking reaction because they're not biting at all, and you're popping it just to get them to react, and you're doing that faster, trying to get them to do something. Or if you're just doing that nice 2 or 3 foot, doing that nice stroke, giving it to them nice. All right, there you go, giving it to them,
This just got awkward.
Sorry. Doing what you got to do. Yeah. Or if you're popping it, or if you're doing like big strokes, doing what you got to do. Sorry, it did get weird there, but
I was going to say too, and you mentioned watching your line. That I think that's definitely super important. Like even on the fall, if you are in 8 to 10 feet of water, still, shallow, it's somewhat important, but definitely in the deeper water, you want to watch the line the whole time when you first cast on the initial fall to the bottom. Just keep watching your line, because a lot of times they can hit it on the fall. And
that's like half the time. If you're doing pops, half the time is the time where it's slack. So that could be half your bites that you could be missing. So you have to barely reel it in and watch your line and keep it controlled slack, where it's not, there's a little bit of slack in there, but just a little. So if you see something, you can set the hook real quick, and you don't have to catch up to them. Yep.
That took me a bit to learn too. When they kind of say fish it on semi-slack line, and to me what that means is there's just a slight bow in the line, like it's not laying on top of the water. You pretty much have it where you're gonna either see it if something grabs it, or you're gonna feel it. And but it just definitely watching your line is important. That's where that high vis yellow definitely helps too. So.
Yeah, whenever you're lifting it or whenever you're popping it, you don't want the line to be tight to the worm. You want it to be semi-slack, where there's a little bit of give in there, where where the worm can do its action, where you're not hindering the action of the worm by having a tight slack, where a tight line between the rod and the worm. You want there to be a little bit of slack in there, but just a little bit. So if you set the hook, you're not losing any power in your hook set, but just enough slack in there to where you can still see the bite. Right.
You want it to fall naturally, not penduluming. So.
Yeah. If the line is tight between your rod and the worm is not getting the action that it should. Yep.
Cool. Well, there you go, guys. Go out and put that to use. I definitely think it's going to be killer for me this year. I can't wait to try it.
New
I'm
tournament.
Sure there's tons of videos online. You can take what I said and then Nico the heck out of YouTube and take it as far as you want. But that's my proven setup for Nico, and I promise it works. It just works. It flat out works. And I think it doesn't get talked about as much as what it should, because people don't want you to throw the Nico. For real.
I remembered what I was going to say too. I know you were talking about wanting that worm to be standing up off the bottom, and I think Z-Man also helps with that as well, because it's going to naturally want to do that. Whereas, a Yamamoto Senko it'll stand for a little bit, but it's going to want to tend to fall over. Whereas the Z-Man, is going to want to stand up a little bit more. So,
and that's another reason why I went to X Zone, because all their crawls and all their worms float. So as I've been transitioning all my baits, because I have so many soft plastics, I've been changing all my baits over to X Zone. Like, I might eventually change all my worms over to them too, but I haven't made that transition on my Nikos yet. But all of X Zones also stand all the way up too.
Okay,
that's all the worms. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely good to know.
Yeah,
might have to be checking those out as well.
I honestly think that makes a big difference in, whenever I use Z-Man and now whenever I use X Zone, I think having the crawls and the worms float, I I think it really is a thing.
Now, I was just reading something about that the other day. Like it was a post on, I think it was on KBN or something, and the one guy commented, "Oh, floating claws on a crawl isn't good because a bass won't strike a crawl in defensive position. It waits till it's running away." And I'm like, I would, argue that because I mean, why else would they make them do that? That doesn't make sense to me. So
I've never had an issue with that. I've gotten to where the Z-Man Turbo Crawl is my favorite jig trailer, and I'll just snip a little bit of the body off of it there and rig it up on there. And Z-Man, the elastic's known to float a lot better than a lot of other plastics, and that's actually been what I've gotten a lot of my jig bites on is that Z-Man.
Yeah.
That's me first.
That kind of leads into our next technique, I guess, because the Ned Rig, the savior of lost days, it tends to be what you hear a lot of people say to if they're, having a super, super tough day on the water. Sometimes going to the Ned Rig will get you a few bites where nothing else is working. And go ahead, Dan.
I know last year I won one tournament because of it, and I cashed multiple checks just because of the Ned Rig. I mean, it flat out works. I mean, anybody who throws a Ned Rig, it works. I mean, there ain't no doubt about it. And to say it only catches small fish, sometimes it'll catch small fish, and it's not going to be my first bait whenever I'm going for big fish first thing in the morning, probably. But especially if I'm fishing like a group of fish, I'm not leaving a group of fish, if like leaving a spot until I throw a Ned Rig on them. I promise. I'm gonna catch that last fish on a Ned Rig before I go. Yeah.
And I like Ryan said in the beginning of the show, we've had quite a few guests that talked about Ned Rigs and some different techniques. Do you think anything that you do is unique, or would you say it's pretty standard?
Yeah, so I fish. I think the thing about me is I'm versatile. Because I came from a bass boat, I fished college. I went back to school with GI Bill, and I fished college. Like I know a lot of different techniques, but I fish a lot of techniques, but I keep them all really simple. So mine is I fish here. First, I'll give you my setup. It's the same. I fish an Arc Invoker Pro. It's a 610 medium light. That's the thing. I fish a medium light 610 extra fast. Again, it's a $150 rod. Quantum Smoke S3, same reel. I use same braid. 12-pound Sunline SX1 high vis yellow, Alberto knot. Sunline, my line is I use 6-pound line. So this to me is like I'm trying to I can't catch a fish, or I've fished a spot. There's two different reasons I throw a Ned Rig. Either holy crap, I can't catch a fish. Like I'm on Seminole. Things are not looking good, and I got to pull out the Ned Rig, and it still didn't work. Or it could be I fished a spot, I fished it out, I still see some fish down there, and let me try to catch one more. Or sometimes they just won't bite anything else. And here, I'm going to give you my theory on the Ned Rig, and it's stupid, but I'm going to tell you what it is. You ready? Let me drink water before I give you this pot here.
Yes, everybody prep yourself. Prep yourself.
All right.
Here comes the real juice right here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's some juice. All right. So I think there's three different kinds of bites. I think there's a reaction bite, crankbaits, spoons, whatever it is. You're stroking a jig. You're getting them to bite because something's in their spot. And they don't have hands. They can't hit it. They have to hit it with their mouth, right? Okay, that's one. Number two is feeding. They're hungry. Okay. I think the number 3 bite that a Ned Rig has gotten into that wasn't there before is the Dorito bite. I know it's my theory.
I like where you're going with that.
Okay, so if somebody puts a Dorito in your face, look, I got some extra weight on me, and I love it.
Hey, you ain't telling me nothing.
All right, I seen you. I know you do. I got a little bit more in you, but if somebody puts a Dorito in your face, a Dorito smell delicious. Are you hungry? No. You don't want a Dorito. You're not hungry. You just ate. You just had a big dinner. But that Dorito, you're probably going to eat it because it's in your face. If I keep putting it in your face, Cool Ranch, oh, that's your favorite flavor. You just have to eat it. Why not? Oh, it's right there. It's only like 5 calories. Why not?
Yeah, just a little snack.
It's not going to hurt you. You just have to eat it. That's what a Ned Rig is. It's a Dorito bite. Like, if there's no reason not to bite it, you have to bite it. That's what a Ned Rig is. That's exactly what it is to me.
That makes perfect sense. That is an awesome theory.
Yeah. It's just a snack.
Yeah, it's not a feeding, it's not a reaction, it's just fine. Like, and
like
just,
I could eat. I could eat, just a little something.
A Hershey
Hold
Kiss.
me over.
I can't say no to a Hershey Kiss. I mean, that's not even food. Like, that's what a Ned Rig is. So, I throw it on 6-pound line. I throw it on the lightest stuff. So I'm throwing it whenever I either can't get a bite or I'm trying to get that last fish. I'm trying the last one in the school. I know there's another one down there, or whenever things go wrong, the Ned Rig is so that's why I'm throwing it on the lightest line. I'm throwing it on medium light rod. But I've caught like 10-pound catfish. I've caught 5-pound spots on it, which is down here at Coosa River. 5-pound spot is like the devil. Trying to get that dude in on 6-pound line. You can do it, but it's, that's like trying to pull in a whale. I promise. A 5-pound spot, Coosa River spot, is difficult to get in on 20-pound line. But it's just, it just, I throw it on the very lightest stuff I can because I'm trying to get, whenever I'm throwing it, it's in particular situations. So that's why I throw it the way I throw it. Could you throw it on 8-pound line with the Nico Rig, on that same medium rod, 8-pound line? You could probably throw, if you were a noob and you've got to combine these two techniques, you could probably get away with it. You could probably throw a little bit heavier, like the big TRD, and throw it on 8-pound line. And you could probably figure that out and put the two together. Yeah, you could probably do that. But the way it fits into my lineup, this is how I throw it. And the way it's worked for me, buy this, I promise. Or watch it online. I swear, I wish I had one with me. If I could go get it, I would. Get an X Zone lure, the Ned Zone stick baits, and grab it and wobble it. And the whole tail goes like this. It's got like a bulbous end to it, and just shake it and watch what it does. It does something no other Ned Rig bait does. I've had them all. Even the Z-Man is great because it's durable. But the X Zone one, it wobbles like this. It's like one of those door things. Like whenever you slam the door, that's those spring things, and then it shakes, it goes bong. That's exactly what the X Zone Ned does. It's got that wobble, and it just keeps going. Like it's like you slap a girl on her bottom. I'm gonna be nice here. And it just shakes. That's what this does. Like, I'm sorry. I just took this somewhere else.
It's a good illustration. What can I say?
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. That's what the X Zone. God Lord, I hope X Zone don't listen to us.
What do you mean? That's their next marketing thing, I'm sure.
So I'm saying you smack it, and then it's got that wobble. It's got that wobble that them fish want. So that's all I'm saying. I promise. I've went through There's a lot of good ones out there. Sure, I love some Strike Zone. I love that coffee scent. I love coffee. That's great. It's delicious. I might want to eat it myself. There's a lot of good things out there. A lot of good baits. The X-Man's super durable, but get the X Zone one. Put a dab of super glue on your terminal tackle, and I like the weedless one. I've been using it for a long time. And X Zone, they make the terminal tackle. So if you're fishing somewhere that only doesn't have any kind of hang-ups, you can get the X Zone one, and that's good. But I like the Z-Man weedless Finesse rooms, just the regular old school ones. And they used to make a 16th, and I don't know who you are, Mr. Z-Man, but you need to bring them back because I like the 16th. I like the super light ones, and they don't make them anymore. But I use the 10th and 12 foot or less, so the shallow stuff, let's say 10 foot or less, and the 6th ounce and 10 foot or more, so deep water. And I get the weedless ones. It's got 2 little weed guards. You just put them straight out, and they're totally weedless. That's it. You don't have a problem. Buy a bunch of them because you're going to lose them. It is what it is. They don't cost much. They're super cheap. Just get that. Put a dab of super glue on the head where you put the X Zone down, and you can catch a bunch of fish on them. And it's got that wobble. I promise. It's the deal. I have bought all of them. I am saving you money by doing this. Buy that. There you go. Boom.
Have you used any of the EWG Ned rigs?
I have bought some other brands, and I have thrown some other brands directly into the garbage as soon as I got them in the house because their hooks bend. And I have no idea how you can catch a fish on a hook that bends. That's all I'm going to say.
I've seen a few that even online, the hook bend even looks like it wouldn't hold a fish.
There's some other ones out there that I've bought some, and I've spent some good money on them. How does you buy it and you think about it? How does the worm stay on the hook? Think about that. Before you buy it, and I'm not going to call out any brands. Before you buy it, think about how the worm sits on the Ned and how the Ned attaches. What is possibly holding the Ned onto the head? There has to be something. Think about a jig. A jig has some kind of lead keeper on there. Half of the Ned heads out there do not have any kind of keeper that actually holds the bait down onto it. They're garbage. They're absolute garbage. There's some the owner blockhead. That one's okay. There are some good ones out there. I'm not saying there's not some good brands. Get the Z-Man. Unless you're, I've tried the X Zone one. That one is good, but I like the weedless one. That's why I use that one. Yep.
And then
trying to save all money. There you go.
As far as technique with that, are you dead sticking? You're hopping, dragging, all of the above?
Yeah, it's the same thing. You want it on a semi-slack line. So the best way I can explain what a net is you're floating it around. Some people actually fish it like you'll almost fish it in open water. You can fish it for suspended bass, but most of the time, 90% of the time, I'm fishing it on bottom, but I'm not dragging it on bottom. I'm just kind of floating it off the bottom. Like I'm not dragging it. I'm just semi-slack lining it. And every now and then, it's so hard to explain. I'm not just dragging it. It's almost popping it, but you're just semi-slack lining it. Like if you can see my hand, if you're actually watching it, like you're just kind of going like this, and you're just barely reeling it as you do it. So you're just like most of the time it's semi-slack. So let's say every 3 seconds, you're actually feeling the bait. You're just little tiny pops.
So you're actually doing that constantly?
Yeah, just little bitty pops. So it's just kind of think about it just barely popping off the bottom, just little bitty hops. So you're just slacking it off the bottom is what it is. Instead of dragging it off the bottom, you're just doing little bitty pops off the bottom is what it is. But it's also, at the same time you're doing that, you're also keeping it semi-slack line as you're doing it. So it's almost like it's just kind of floating off the bottom.
Good.
And that technique is going to take a little bit of time to do, but once you do, it will catch the mess out of them, man. You can go out there with a kid. I mean, like my kid, there's also something called a tiny child rig.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can look up wired to fish on that one. That's what I give my son. It's a 1/0 hook, and then you put that shrooms weight that I talked about in the Ned rig. You put that in the bottom of it, so you have that wobble head, that X zone Ned. You put that shrooms weight in the bottom, and then you put a 1/0 hook in the front and the top, and then you let that kid throw it around all day into grass, anywhere they want to. They can't get it hung up, and that'll catch some fish too. So it's like a weedless Ned, and you can throw that anywhere you want to. That's why I give my son, and he sits in the back of the kayak throwing that tiny child rig around. He can't hook himself, he can't anything, and he catches fish on it.
I haven't tried that yet. I still need to
I tried it one time and caught one bass on the river, like when I went out with my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, and we were all struggling. And I was like, I heard about this, and I have the stuff here to do it. So I did it. I used a big TRD or a big Ned, the slightly bigger Ned on that, but I was able to catch a bass with it, so it made me happy. I don't think you could get it hung up. I mean,
Yeah.
You're Texas rigging basically the top of the Ned rig, and then, like you said, there's a weight in the bottom, and so it'll go down through cover and come back out without getting snagged for the most part.
I give that to my son. I don't ever throw it, but I mean, you could,
Yeah, no, definitely.
I just don't really have it doesn't really fit into my techniques of a time when I could throw it, but I mean, I'm sure there would be a time when I could throw it when it would catch fish. I just don't throw it myself,
I think with the Ned rig, one of the hardest things for me was that I don't always feel it. And, I can't feel the weight on the end of my line like I can with a bigger Senko or something bigger soft plastic or some more heavier weighted stuff. And that was always a struggle for me. But I think that's part of what makes the Ned rig good.
That's what keeps a lot of people away, and that's the only reason it's still effective is because a lot of people can't. Like everybody can't throw every bait. Like I can't a jerk bait for some reason. That technique, doing that weird technique, doing that jerk bait technique, that motion. Same way with it's very hard for me to do a spook. I don't know why. Like I can do one. It's just hard for me to do. For some reason, that motion does not come naturally for me. Yeah.
Well, that jerkbait motion, I don't have an issue with the motion itself, but in a kayak, it's really hard for me for some reason. Yeah. So I've never really thrown it just for that reason because it's awkward for me in a kayak.
I can do the motion, but I have trouble tying in my reeling to match up with it, so it's jerk, jerk, jerk. Okay, reel a little bit, jerk, reel. Am I doing this right? Am I, so it's definitely, that's where I struggle with it. But I have, it does look like it's doing what it's supposed to, but I have no clue if it really is or not.
So, I mean, you can't throw everything, but that one, man, that one is it's hard to overstate how powerful a Ned rig is whenever you need it. If you want to be if you're sitting here and you're listening to this, and you're saying, I want to be a tournament angler. My goal is I'm starting out. I want to be a tournament angler. You cannot pass up a Ned rig. You can't miss that step. You can't. It has to be one of the techniques that you have If you don't have it in your arsenal, you are missing fish. You will miss fish. There will be times when you will miss fish that could have helped you to cash a check. Flat out. You just are.
Yeah, everybody that listens to this show, they know I'm not a spinning gear guy at all. I carry one spinning rod with me, and 95% of the time, that one spinning rod has a Ned Rig tied on it. That's like one of the light finesse things that I'll use.
Yeah.
All right. Well, are we winding down here?
Yeah, Dan, you thought we would have trouble covering time. Look at it. We're at an hour already.
Yeah. We were thinking it'd end up like a 2-hour episode with all your little details you go into.
Well, I mean, if we were at first, we were just talking about the Nico, but I mean, with the Ned and the Nico, yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming back on here and talking with us little people. I know you're used to talking. I know you're used to talking to all your big wigs over there on the Reel Down.
We don't have the same people we do. Yeah, dog. Hey, y'all get more. Hey, seriously, man, y'all do a great job, and I know the Reel Down. I know y'all get more listeners than we do. Y'all are the big show on Paddle and Fin, not us. So, congratulations to y'all and all the hard work y'all put in. Come on now. Don't be like that.
All right. No. But yeah, we appreciate you coming on here and talking with us once again.
Anytime. If as always, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to message me. I'm happy to answer your questions anytime.
We'll send you the spreadsheet.
If you go back and listen to that spreadsheet episode, Dan and the spreadsheet, I will send you that spreadsheet.
That's been over a year now. That was last December whenever you did that episode. And I think
that was when I was still a listener at that point.
I think there's still some people that ask for it every now and then.
It's finally been a while. I think it's been a couple of months since anybody's asked me for that spreadsheet, but for a while, man, I was getting lit up with some spreadsheet requests. But if you go back and listen to that Dan and the spreadsheet episode, I will send you the spreadsheet with all the different techniques, and I'm happy to send you that too.
December 2019, if you're looking for it.
Yeah, there you go.
But hit up Dan if you got any more questions and whatnot. Check Dan out over on the Reel Down if you don't watch it or listen to it already. Dan, do you want to do the sponsor thing and all that? Got anything you want to say?
I mean, on Facebook, Daniel Perry. I don't know, Hoover, Alabama, Paddle and Fin. I guess you can search me that way. Don't look at my YouTube. That's terrible. It's Daniel Perry Fishing. If you want to, I got like 5 janky videos and 4 subscribers.
And I actually found one of your videos just out of the blue. Like I forget I forget what the video was or what I was looking for, but I Googled something and some videos popped up and I popped it on there. I was like, that dude's voice sounds familiar. Like, oh, this is Dan.
Who's this sexy voice I'm hearing? Oh, and on Instagram I'm Daniel Perry Fishing. But the sponsors, I don't have many, but it's Bino Power. Love the batteries. X Zone, about them tonight. The best baits around, except for that X Zone. I mean the Z-Man with the Nico. Hard to get away from that, but I might one day. And Yak Gadget. Love them. Yep. And I have Old Town Kayak. I love Old Town. Come on, Old Town. Holler at you, boy.
Go listen to I just finished listening to you talk with Brad and Josh about Old Town, and that was a pretty good episode. So definitely worth listening to, checking out, guys, if you haven't already. So
I didn't apply last year. I might next year. We'll see.
There you go.
I do love some Old Town Kayaks. I might apply next year. We'll see.
My buddy's got one. He likes it a lot.
They've been good.
I'm for pedal drive. I'm stuck with Jackson for now, until manufacturers start bringing out options for which side the handle is for steering the rudder. I'm stuck with Jackson because
Kobe has it on both sides.
But I don't want to buy a Hobie though, because then after a couple of years you become a douche. And no, I'm playing. That's a joke. That's a joke. Nobody get.
Well, at least I got a couple years yet.
I'm playing anybody that's a Hobie out there. It's just a joke. I love you. Don't worry. But yeah, appreciate everybody listening. It's been Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast, bringing you the techniques, tricks, and tips to help you rip more lips. Later, y'all.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_n-fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_n-fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com